Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So today we'll be talking about the California STEP program, also known as State Trade Expansion Program. This is funded in part by the U.S. Small Business Administration. It helps increase the number of eligible small business exporters, as well as increase the volume of goods and services they export. The program is divided into two portions. So it's going to be the STEP event applications and the STEP export vouchers. In order to qualify for the grants, you must be organized as a for-profit enterprise, be organized, registered, and operating in the United States, registered to do business in California and in good standing. So in the application process, if you are a corporation or LLC, we will ask you to provide the entity number with the Secretary of State. This is to ensure you have an active status. Or if you're a sole proprietor, you must provide the proof of registration or status for your business. You must satisfy the SBA small business eligibility standards determined by the NAICS code, be exporting a good or service of U.S. origin that has at least 51% U.S. content, and be in business for at least 1 year at the time that the funded activity takes place. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this a little bit more. I'm going to pull up our program guidelines, which are available online. This goes into a little bit more detail into what those qualifications mean. So when it comes to having 51% US content, we do have a calculation in case you're curious whether or not you meet that qualification. You can then take the cost of your good, subtract any foreign costs, and then that way we can calculate the percentage. As I mentioned, let's go ahead, participation eligibility. You must meet the SBA's definition of small business using the NAICS code. So in your application, you provide us with a 6-digit NAICS code, which we then run through this document, which is essentially a list of NAICS codes, and it determines the limit to be considered a small business for that NAICS code. So as you can see, sometimes it is determined by annual revenue or value or the number of employees. That's why we will ask for all this 3 information in the application. So we will ask for the 6-digit NAICS code, the annual value of your company, and then the number of employees, again, to determine your eligibility. If you're a corporation or LLC, you will provide us with the entity number. If you're not familiar with your entity number, because I know this is not something that's always just on top of everyone's head, you will go ahead and go to the link in our program guidelines, or just visit California Secretary of State Business Search, and you can enter your company business name. So let's see if I have an example. McDonald's. Okay, so let's say you provided us for LLCs, it's a 12-digit NAICS code, or sorry, a 12-digit entity code, and for corporations, it's a 7-digit number. So you provide us for that number and we will look it up. Again, if you're not familiar with that number, just go ahead and look up your business name and go ahead and find it. So we will make sure that you have an active status and a filing date that's consistent with when the business was started. So if your status is terminated or suspended, feel free to reach out to us and we'll communicate you what the potential next steps could be. Okay, so that is really it for eligibility. Let's go ahead and take it to the next step. And STEP events. So as I mentioned earlier, the STEP program is essentially divided into 2 sub-programs. The STEP events are pre-selected export promotion activities designed to connect California exporters to emerging global markets. STEP eligible companies can apply to participate at a reduced cost. STEP events differ from the export vouchers as there is a set of funds put aside for the specific events. So we have 3 regional trade representatives. These 3 regional trade representatives work with partners to determine what events we encourage California companies to attend. This could be a matter of maybe the state has specific industries in mind that they want to encourage the growth of, or this is industries or regions that they are specifically interested or have heard that there's a good return on investment. They will select events such as the ones that we have are upcoming Avalon Australia, TradeWinds ASEAN, World Smart Energy Week, which is a trade show, Info Security, Paris Air Show, these type of events. They would put a certain amount of funding aside for a number of California companies, and we encourage the companies to attend. If they are STEP eligible, they would get funded in case that they are also received approval from the event organizers. So it's STEP eligibility plus the event organizer's approval, then they get those funding. These tend to be an easier application process because the funding has been set aside. It's just a number. It really is however many companies apply to that program. These STEP events don't deduct from the funding that you're eligible to from the export voucher. These are in addition. So we always encourage for you to visit our website to check what events are currently being funded. Let me go ahead and pull up our website, and you can always learn more about about the events at export.business.ca.gov. Go ahead and go to events and then see what is currently available. For some of these events, even though they're listed here, the registration on the STEP side has already passed. But again, you always want to make sure to be up to date, and feel free to, or I encourage you to subscribe to our newsletter because we're also providing updates there as well. So those are STEP events. Again, the funding is in addition to the export voucher. Okay, now for the export voucher. So the export voucher is formally known as ICEP, the Individual Company Export Promotion. This is where the companies themselves propose their activities. So unlike the STEP events where the events are already selected, if the event you're interested, if the trade show you're interested is not listed, you would go ahead and propose that trade show here. So the STEP export voucher applicants can receive a maximum reimbursement up to $10,000 to offset 75% of approved expenses. So an example of this would be a company pays $10,000 for international trade show. We would reimburse $7,500. If a company pays $950 for a gold key service, we would reimburse 75% of that, being $712.50. So something that's going to be very important, especially right now with the amount of applications we have, the application process is going to be, the selection process, it's going to be very competitive. Not everyone will be awarded, and those awarded have not been getting awarded the amount they requested. So some reasoning behind that is that the state of California applied for the maximum amount of funding from SBA for the federal grant. We received a lot less than we applied for, and so funding has been not as much funding is available, and due to the high number of applications, it's a more competitive process, and we want to make sure that we can get money to as many small businesses as possible. So of course that makes it more competitive, and that also makes it so that not everyone gets up to the $10,000, and especially not in the first round. So what has been happening is companies have been pre-approved for, say, $5,000 the first round, and we say, if there's funds left, come apply again for round 2 and apply for the remaining funds. And if there is funds left over, we'll go ahead and award you the remaining funds. But again, it's going to be very, very competitive. So do keep that in mind. You can request up to $10,000, but again, the funding is somewhat limited at this point. Okay, so that sounds a little bit on the downside, but funding from the state of California is now coming in to help match some of these funds. So keep bringing those applications in. Okay, STEP applications must be submitted in advance of the planned activity. We recommend at least 15 days just because there is somewhat of a large turnaround time for us to come back to you with a status. Applications for retroactive activities will not be considered. And I believe this is a guideline set up by SBA. So it's not something that we have flexibility on. The application for retroactive activities will not be considered. All the latest information regarding the periods will be posted on our website, export.pacis.ca.gov/program-details. We are currently in round 2 of the application period. So round 1 has closed. Companies that applied for round 1 right now are being waitlisted just because majority of those funds have been fully committed. So now we are in round 2. So we are currently accepting activities we're currently, accepting applications for activities that take place between January 1st through March 31st. So if you have activities during that period, go ahead and start applying now. We have received questions for businesses regarding activities happening past March 31st. Again, just because we do have limited amount of funds and a high number of applications, we don't foresee that funds will be left over to have another round 3. But in the case that we do, we always announce it again on our newsletter or on our website. So you always want to make sure, go ahead and bookmark this URL so you can check it every once in a while. But again, my best recommendation would be to subscribe to our newsletter. So again, you're going to go ahead to go to program details, and then we always have our updated export voucher application period here. Okay, now for the export voucher. So I mentioned earlier, the export voucher is where a company themselves can propose the activities that they are interested in. We have several different categories, and I'll go over a few of them right here. So allowable expenses, we have international trade shows or trade missions. Right now, international trade shows do have preference over domestic trade shows, again, just because the funding is competitive. Previously, we've funded a few conferences in the past, but again, right now, because it's very competitive, we are prioritizing those international trade shows. Domestic trade shows, you must show that it has an international presence, and it's capped at $5,000 for reimbursement. We reimburse for the services that U.S. Commercial Service provides. So their Gold Key service, their initial market check, their Fuse program, their website globalization program within the U.S. Commercial Service, those are all reimbursable expenses and always highly, highly recommended by us. Website globalization and e-commerce. So this is going to be if you are translating your website in another language to target a foreign market, if you are bringing in, if you're doing search engine optimization or SEO, again, to try and reach another market. E-commerce, if you're adding a plugin in order to sell your products in another country, those are eligible expenses. Compliance testing, if you're doing a certification mark that you're paying for in order to go to the UK, that would be an eligible cost. Sample shipping, this is going to be your shipping fees that you're sending either your product to a trade show or your product to a potential distributor. It is important to note that we do not reimburse for the cost of a sales shipment. So if you had a customer buy a product and you're shipping it, that's not reimbursable. So we do ask that this is seen as an export promotion activity versus a business operation. And in the case that you do propose activities that are somewhat questionable, we will ask for clarification. Intellectual property. So this could be the lawyer fees in order to trademark your company in China. This could be the trademark registration itself. I think we've reimbursed in the past the translation of a contract because that was directed to intellectual property. Do note that this one is capped at $2,500. Next, we have international marketing material. This is going to be the design, the graphic design, any social media ads, product packaging in another language, anything that could be seen as an export promotion activity regarding to marketing material would be eligible. We do not reimburse for a printing cost. That is a limit set by SBA, so we cannot fund it whatsoever. Export research tools. So if you're using a subscription of a third-party service in order to get data for exporting, that would be reimbursable. XM insurance policy premiums. And I believe we also do the XM report. I have to get the specific name of that, but we reimburse for that one as well. If you want more details onto the allowable expenses, we do have our program guidelines that dives in a little bit deeper. For the allowable expenses, there are ineligible costs that apply to all of these. So the ineligible costs are for all the categories. So some things that are not eligible are the cost of travel, so the lodging, the meals, the transportation. Let's see, so printing cost. Costs associated with staff time. So if you say, oh, well, I'm going to be doing website globalization, but it's our IT person. So if it's someone on your payroll, it would not be eligible. It would have to be by a third party. Consultants, or if you use free work or I think it's called Upwork, where you use a third party contractor, that would be eligible. Let's see what is also not eligible. There's some other ones that are very specific that are not eligible. So again, if you break down the cost that you expect for the activity in the application, I will typically go back and let you know whether something is allowable or not. But we do have this document. Excuse me. Okay. So, oh, I'm still sharing. I'm sharing the wrong one. Here we go. Okay. So the STEP application timeline. So it is somewhat of a lengthy process. So the timeline is that a company submits their application through our grant portal at step.business.ca.gov. Typically takes our team and the STEP review committee 14 days to review your application, provide any feedback, and then provide you with a status. We either pre-approve you, move you back to in progress, and ask you for any edits. So it's not like a full-on rejection. If we see something that we have questions on, or we're not sure about your eligibility, we'll go ahead and reach back out to you to allow you an opportunity to make those changes before fully right on rejecting you. So you either get pre-approved, get moved to in progress for edits, waitlisted, or rejected again only after in progress. And this is only if it's like fair out like eligibility, like you don't have an active status or you're not a small business, etc. So 14 days for that. The companies selected for funding are then moved in the grant portal to phase 2. This is where they will complete the vendor forms. And these are, I believe, 4 vendor forms that the company has to complete in order to be set up in our accounting system. The reason we do that is because we have to, in order to reimburse you, we send out a physical check. Unfortunately, we do not wire. So we have to go through the process of setting you as an account in our accounting system and then getting that all set up with our accounting team. The company then executes the activities that they were pre-approved for. So the company had to execute before their reimbursement comes in. So the company executes the activities, comes back, and then does phase 3 in the portal. That portal for phase 3 is currently being developed, but what that consists of is submitting an invoice, proof of payment, proof of activity, and an additional STEP invoice document in order to bill us. So I'll go ahead and just share that because we are working on that as we speak. Let's go ahead and I don't even. Okay, so we'll dive into the application portal very shortly. I just want to give you a quick overview of the step application process. So the first part of the process, known as phase one, is the application itself. That's where you go in, provide your information for all the different sections: contact information, business information, export readiness assessment, proposed activities, required supporting documents, which is the one SBA document just to verify that you are eligible. The second phase of the document is going to be where you provide the different vendor forms. These are just the 4 vendor forms that you would provide. And then lastly, phase 3. This is going to be where you give us an overview of how the activity itself went, what it resulted in, and then you come back and provide us 4 documents. So the reimbursement summary invoice, which is going to look like a PDF file where you have to break down the cost. I'm trying to bring it over. So, yep, this is what it would look like. Again, you would just fill it out and have that 75% reimbursement, because again, we only reimburse 75% of the cost. The proof, the invoices/receipts, the proof of payment that matches that invoice, and then the proof of activity. And that is the step application timeline. Let's go ahead and I'm just going to take a quick water break, but we're going to dive into the actual step portal application. All right. Okay, let's dive in. So on our website, export.business.ca.gov, once a company has reviewed all our program details, the eligibility, they reviewed the business resources, the STEP program guidelines, the application process guide, export voucher application samples, and a pre-recorded webinar video, they would go to apply. So it's just up here at the top right of the menu, and you hit apply. It will take you to the STEP application portal. Okay, let's dive in. The STEP grant program application must be submitted online, again, via our portal. Applicants must create an account in order to create an application. You would do that by selecting Create Account. The user will then be prompted to create an account and will be asked to enter their name, title, company name, phone numbers, and email address. The user must also check the human verification in order to complete the registration process. For security reasons, GO-Biz requires an access key to be provided each time an applicant logs into their account. So thankfully, there's no passwords that you have to remember for this. It's just a matter of putting in your email address and the email key being sent to your email. So just make sure, so it's going to look like this. I believe it comes from noreply@gobiz.ca.gov. Yep, that's the one. Okay. You just want to make sure that we are either a safe sender in your email box, or you're checking your spam or junk in the case that you don't have the email come in. Typically, I would say it takes between 1 to 2 minutes. But if you are having issues, go ahead and check our application process guide for additional information. Okay. Let's go ahead. I believe that is it for this. Yep. The access key expires after 30 minutes. So if it does expire on your end, just go ahead and request a new email key. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, there are essentially 2 portions to the STEP program: the STEP event applications and the STEP export voucher applications. It is important that you know which application you're applying for, because when you create an application, they're going to look somewhat different. So when you first start the application, you're going to go ahead and create a new application. We have a description of what the applications are. So the STEP event application is for pre-selected trade shows. The export voucher is for companies to request reimbursement for their selected export promotion activities. You can have 2 active applications at the same time, but this is a matter of creating them separately. So for this case, we're going to go ahead and do STEP export voucher application. As soon as you scroll down, you're going to be asked to confirm your eligibility. So it goes over the eligibility that we talked today. So incorporated in the U.S., majority operations in California, exporting goods or services with at least 51% U.S. content, meet SBA small business size standards, et cetera, et cetera. It will also ask if you received past funding. Receiving past funding does not make you ineligible, but we do give priority for those that are new to the program. But again, if funding is still competitive, so if a company that is returning has a really strong application, that's also something to take into consideration. Okay, so you create a new application, fill out your eligibility, and inform us of any past funding. Once the application is created, the application summary screen will display all required application sections. The sections will vary based on whether you're submitting a STEP event or a STEP export voucher. This is an example of an application screen for the export voucher application. On the STEP event, instead of proposed activities, it says event selection, and all you have to do is a drop down and select the activity. So again, kind of quick and easy. As questions are answered within each section, the applicant must select submit section and return at the bottom of the page to save their progress. This action will update the application summary page to show that the section is either in progress or complete. So if you just save draft, it's going to have the status as in progress, and the submit button will not show. The submit button will only show once all the sections are completed, because you cannot move forward. So the first section is a STEP contact. The primary contact must be designated and entered to complete this section. The primary contact will be the main point of contact that GO-Biz will communicate with during the application and evaluation period. Please ensure that the email address provided for the primary contact is regularly monitored. You're also able to add authorized contacts. Contacts added in the sections are only used for communication purposes. This does not grant the contact access to the online application. To authorize a contact access to an online application, you must select application. Where we go? Okay, application options at the bottom of the application summary screen, and select application users. You will then add the email address for that user to have access to the application, but they must have an account first. So we've had happen that we have a primary contact and only one primary contact, and we let them know that they've been pre-approved for the application and they have 14 days to complete the vendor forms, and we never hear back. And thankfully, the CEO of that company ended up reaching out saying, hey, we know we have an application on file, but the person that was filling out the application has left. Can you give me access to the application? And we can work with you to give you access to the application, but it's always important to just go ahead and add an extra user that's going to be authorized. So in the case that we don't hear back from the primary contact, we have someone that we can go to follow up. So it's just good as a plan B in case an emergency happens, or say you won a cruise and you're out the office for the next month. We have someone that we can communicate with in the case that we don't hear back from you. So that's just a quick tip. Okay, I'm pretty sure I'm switched over to the next slide. Let me just confirm. Okay, business. So in this section, the applicant must provide general information regarding the applicant's business, very straightforward. First off, the legal business name. So this is the name that is reflected also on your taxes, on the Secretary of State, all that good stuff. If you have a separate name that you go by, or if you are a sole proprietor, of course, your legal business name is your personal name, and the DBA is the name that you do business by. So just very straightforward. Date of company establishment, enter the year, the date and year that the business was established. Again, we do verify this with the Secretary of State records. So if there is a mismatch, we will go back and ask you for additional information. Website, this is actually no longer optional. This is required just because we do like to check on your website to look at the products or the services you offer and do verify that they are 51% US content. In the case that we think it does not meet the 51% US content, we will reach out and ask for additional proof. Provide a description of your products and or services. This is where you want to provide us with a good amount of information. Don't just say we sell tires. We want to hear where you manufacture tires from. I need additional details like we've been established in 1985 or family-run company. Just provide as much details as you can regarding your company and the products and or services. Number of employees. This is going to be the average number of people employed for each pay period over the last 12 calendar months. Any person on the payroll must be included as one employee, regardless of the hours worked or temporary status. As far as definitions, so number of employees, everyone's familiar with that, but regarding the definitions for each of these questions, I highly recommend for you to review our application process guide, just because as you go through the application, it does provide you the definition of each section. So right now, I just went over number of employees, and we have what is considered an employee. We have that definition in the application portal user guide. So it's going to be a great guide for you to use. Okay. Resuming the business portion. Mailing address. This is going to be the mailing address for the company. Payment address, straightforward. Legal entity, business. So again, if you're a corporation LLC, you would determine that and then provide the business entity number. We review the business entity number, but in the case that you're not sure, you go ahead and click the URL and it will take you to the California Secretary of State, so you can search for your company and then add that number. The next code, so again, this is a 6-digit number to best classify your product or service. You can go ahead and click the URL in the application so you can review the 6-digit NAICS code and make that determination. Annual receipts. So regarding the total divided by gross income per year, we don't ask for the exact dollar. So we're not asking you to provide to the decimal. It's just a category. So between 2 million to 5 million, or between 0 to 499,000. But just to get an idea of where you are, again, this is just used to ensure that you are eligible as a small business. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but that's my stomach rumbling. I didn't get a chance to eat breakfast today, but I will after this. Okay, so again, the business portion, it's very straightforward. At the bottom of just the information we gather, it's just demographic questions. So are you a woman-owned business? Are you social economic disadvantage? This actually does not have any weight in the selection process, but it is just in order to collect data for the state of California. Okay, the next section in the application is the export readiness assessment. In this section, the applicant will provide information regarding the business's export knowledge and experience. You will either select whether you are new to export or market expansion. Those that are new to export are for businesses that have no export experience at all, only accidental or novice export experience, or no export experience within 24 months. Market expansion are for businesses that currently export to one or more markets and is seeking to expand into new country market or expand into a new region / segment / product line. In the export readiness assessment, you will be asked 5 questions that you can see here. Describe the current challenges faced in exporting. List the foreign markets you're interested in. What's the demand for your product or services? Describe your market entry plan and describe the past business efforts in foreign sales development. So this is for us to assess where you are in your business, if you have tried to export before in the past, and if there were specific challenges that you're trying to navigate, the specific countries you're interested in. So we just want to make sure to filter out any companies that are actually not serious about exporting and are just seeking funds. This is for us to really gather information as to where they are in exporting. So for this, you want to make sure to provide as complete answers to the questions as possible. So the more information, the better. We've had, for the STEP program, we do have a number of companies like restaurants or barbershops that first apply, and then they get to the export readiness assessment, and then they realize that maybe this grant is not for them. I think this is a bit to kind of just filter out those companies that this grant does not apply to. If you are one of those companies, still, you can just reach out to us directly, and we can always point you to the grants that would be applicable to you. But again, this is just to show that the company is serious about exporting and is interested in their export plans in the future. If you're new to exporting and haven't had any challenges, that is completely fine. Just tell us what you have done in the past or what your strategy will be in order to export. Okay. As I mentioned, so we're kind of taking a step back. If you were doing an event application, just a quick drop down, select the event you are interested in, and you move to the next section of providing the document, and that's it for your application. On the export voucher side, it's a little bit more complicated than that. This is where you provide, you propose the activities you are interested in. So under proposed activities, you would go ahead and add an activity. You can add up to 6 separate activities. So when you first create an activity, you have a drop-down selection of the categories we talked about. You would then provide an estimated start date. So you'd enter the activity start date and the estimated completion date. It is important that the estimated completion date follows the round time frame. So as I mentioned earlier, round 1 was for activities that took place between October through December. Now we are in round 2 for activities that take place between January and March 31st. So the estimated completion date cannot go past March 31st. Otherwise, March 31st, 2023, otherwise your application will be rejected. So do keep that in mind. If you have specific questions for your application, go ahead and reach out to us. Okay, then as you can see here, we have estimated expenses. This is where you enter the estimated expenses as if they were itemized on an invoice. You want to make sure to provide as much information as possible. So as you can see here on the PowerPoint, it doesn't just say trade show 8,500. It says trade show booth B, booth design components, materials. So break the estimated expense as much as possible, because when you come If you are pre-approved and you come back to us for that invoice, what we don't want to happen is that we then go through the invoice and we say, okay, well, this one we can't reimburse. We just want to let you know beforehand. Because again, travel expenses, all that stuff, that would not be reimbursable. So again, list the estimated eligible expenses. For the requested funds, you would then enter 75% of the estimated expense. Okay, then you have a set of activity questions. So the next question is in line is the export activity name / details. This is where you provide a 2 to 4 sentence summary of the proposed activity for the category selected, along with a brief overview of how the funds will be used. Okay, next in line is the business growth and export strategy. Explain how the activity will support the business's growth and export strategy. Country or countries targeted. Explain which countries the activity will target and how. So if you're proposing to do a trade show, the countries targeted tends to be pretty straightforward. It's either the country that the trade show is happening in or the region that the trade show is happening in. But if this is something different, like website globalization, where you're translating your website in another language, then it's like, okay, you're translating it into Japanese to target the Japan market or the Asian market, etc. So again, it just needs to make sure in line. Website link. So you, in this section, provide us with the URL of the third party that is conducting this activity. So again, if you are selecting trade show, you would copy and paste the trade show event link. If you are using a third party to do website globalization, you would provide us the URL of that third party that is going to be doing the work. The reason that we do that is just so we can review this third party that's doing their work, make sure that there's not any red flags with them. I don't think we've rejected anybody in the past, but again, it's just for due diligence to make sure that there is a plan in place. And this is not just like a throw in the dark and hoping for money. There's an actual plan that you're hoping to execute on. Export promotion assistance. This is where you enter the name of the organization and or the person that is going to be assisting in implementing this activity. So for any of this activity, say you are attending a trade show and you're working with an association that's going to also attend the trade show with you, go ahead and include them. If you are doing a U.S. commercial service product, go ahead and enter the name of the trade specialist that you're working with. Lastly, on the proposed activities is the anticipated and intended outcomes. So you would just provide the expected qualitative outcomes, and then right after that you would provide the quantitative outcomes. So what is the 12-month sales forecast, the 12-month jobs created forecast, and the jobs retained forecast. So that is it for the proposed activities. For the proposed activities, we do have some general recommendations for this. So propose each activity by category separately. Do not lump activities together. So if you are doing a trade show and you're also sending sample shipments to the trade show, do a separate activity for the sample shipments, just because the sample shipments do have a cap. So that's why we ask that you do the activities separately. We cannot consider activities outside of the round time frame. For this one, again, would be January through March 31st. Please ensure the activities fall within the appropriate time frames. For the question, list the estimated expenses, break down the cost of the specific activity you are proposing. General or vague answers will not be accepted. So if you do provide just like trade show or website globalization, I'll go back and say, hey, sorry, it's getting moved back to in progress. Please break it down. So in the case that you provide a vague answer, we have to go back. That slows down the process and now delays whether or not the status that we provide you. So again, if you're doing website globalization, don't just say website globalization. Go ahead and say search engine optimization to target Spain, or translating it into Japanese. Be very specific. Okay. For the requested funds, the amount requested should be equal up to 75% of the estimated expense, or up to the activity category, whichever is lower. I am receiving a call. Okay. Activity questions. This section should answer the who, what, where, when, how, and why of the proposed activity. Answers should demonstrate that the company has a plan in action and will be able to execute it within the proposed time frame. So we have had applications that they tell us we're going to do 7 gold keys for 7 different regions with a 1-month time frame. That to us is for the STEP review committee, when they review that application, it doesn't seem realistic, just because we're familiar with the U.S. Commercial Service, how their gold key service works, and the time it takes to do a gold key. So that is something that the STEP review committee definitely looks at. So be realistic with the activities you're proposing and the time frame. The sales forecast should be a sensible number as a direct result of the activity you're proposing. We accept a sales forecast of $0. Like if you're doing compliant testing registration, we understand that that's probably not going to have any sales as a result of it within 12 months, but it may be down 24 months. But again, this should be a sensible number. The sales forecast, the number you propose doesn't have an impact on what the STEP review committee looks at, is just to kind of navigate. Okay. STEP tips. Bookmark our website, review the business resources, track and follow email correspondence from the STEP administrators. If initial plans change, communicate with the STEP administrations, and be mindful of deadlines. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and jump into a sample STEP event application, just so you guys can see what it actually looks like. Let me go ahead and make sure I have the right one. Perfect. Okay. So here I have a STEP application. As you can see, this is for the STEP export voucher. When it comes to the contact information, again, you want to make sure to have your primary contact and also an authorized contact as well, just for any issues. Very straightforward. Business information. This is what the business information page looks like. Go ahead and fill out the whole section. The mailing address, payment address. It's only applicable if it's different from the mailing address. Business structure, entity number, NICS code, annual receipts. Again, this is a drop down, so you can just select the one that best fits, and the demographic questions. You would select submit section and return. I'm just going to hit cancel just because the information is already saved. Export readiness assessment. I think for this application test, I've actually went in, did research in order to provide the answers to these questions. So current challenges, it provides a full answer to the question, provides specific examples, why there's demand for the project, and why the company has a competitive advantage. Again, when we select companies for these grants, is essentially a return on the investment. We want to give you this grant because the United States SBA, the state of California, believes that there will be a result in sales, in jobs created, in jobs retained as a result of you taking on this activity. Describe the entry plan. So again, very detailed information. Past foreign sales development. What activities have you conducted in the past that gives us confidence that this will result in a successful activity? Okay, propose activities. So as you can see, I have 3 separate activities. We have a trade show, So I provide the breakdown of the cost, the total, 75% of the estimated total. For the activity name details, I provide information of the activity name. If it's a trade show, the time, place it's taking, and the location. How it will support the export strategy, how and what country it will target, then the link of the third party, et cetera, et cetera. Sample shipping. So this is the sample shipment to the trade show, but it is set as a separate activity, again, because of the cap. Okay, again, we provide the URL of the third party that will be conducting the activity. So in this case, those that are doing the shipping. And lastly, a U.S. commercial service product. Again, providing the breakdown, why this market, etc. So that's very quickly what the portal looks like. Let me go ahead and switch back to the presentation. On our program website, we have all this information. So we have the sub-program guidelines, which I've showed today, the application process guide, export voucher application sample. So just as I showed today, the different activities. This is just a PDF version of that example. So just for you to see what type of detail we look for in the application. The proposed activity. Here we have an example for an international trade show. Next, we have an example for sample shipping. Another example for the U.S. commercial service product. And I believe this is, okay, it may not be the last sample, but website mobilization and intellectual property. So you have 5 different examples as to the different category applications that again are available under business resources. Sub-program training video, that's going to be like a pre-recorded webinar video like we are having here today. So again, program guideline, application portal guide, export voucher application sample, and that is it. I'll go ahead and stop the recording of the webinar here, but now we'll go ahead and allow for any questions to come in for the presentation. Thank you all very much.